Serious ladies, what's the creepiest thing a guy has done that was meant to be romantic? A guy told me that he had killed 2 people and dumped their bodies in the lake. He was psycho and thought that somehow that would be cool or mysterious and would impress me. He offered to take me to the spot in the lake and show me. I called the cops on him. He was P and said he made it up and I shouldn't have overreacted. I don't really know what he was expecting. OMG murderers. So hot. A guy I worked with sent me flowers to my home address. When I asked how he got my address, he told me he stole my payslip. It was my first job out of college, and I went to a lot of networking events. I met a guy who was older, grey hair, balding, and had maybe a 15-minute conversation with him about very mundane topics. We exchanged business cards and moved on to the next contact. Next day at work I get a huge bouquet of flowers. This thing easily cost over $100. They arrived right as I was leaving for a meeting with a coworker, so I didn't really have time to think about them. Get back and I have 2 messages from the guy asking if I have received the flowers. As I'm listening to the messages, he calls again. I share an office with my 30-something male boss, so personal phone calls are already awkward. The flower sender is asking if I got the flowers. What did I think? And telling all these other things he thought about sending, but he wasn't sure what I liked. When he finally stops talking, I thank him and tell him the flowers were a little much, which causes him to tell me that it meant nothing. He was just trying to be friendly. When I got off the phone, my boss, who could only hear my side of the conversations, said, "I hope that guy doesn't know where you live. Your boss is awesome." I was flirting with a guy in a club. We talked all night and finally kissed. He was awesome and really hot. Then he told me to close my eyes and he put a silver necklace with a cross around my neck. I looked at it and said, thanks. He smiled and said, "It belonged to my first girlfriend. She died in a house fire when I was 15. Ex-boyfriend thought sending me a leopard print thong in the mail was charming, but he didn't want to be a creep, so he sent it anonymously, and I opened it in front of my parents' dart. I actually think that's hilarious. When I was like 16, a 25-year-old tried to get with me. We knew each other through barbershop quartet programs, and since it is a small group of people, most of them add each other on Facebook and talk often. Well, this guy added me and immediately began to flirt with me. He'd always call me cutie or tell me how sexy I looked in pictures, followed by D. I had a boyfriend at the time, so I tried to respond by talking about my boyfriend rather than making a scene, since I was still involved in the barbershop community. Anyway, one day he decided to tell me how my boyfriend didn't seem worthy of me, then followed it up with the fact that he masturbated to pictures of me. When I didn't respond, he said, "We all do it. I'm just a little lonely." I blocked him after that. I've seen other guys do that. Tell a woman they masturbate to an image of the woman. That's like stamping yourself on the head with a creep stamp. I had an ex-boyfriend who began stalking me after I broke up with him. He'd wait outside for me, park his truck behind my car so I couldn't leave creepy notes on my car, stand outside my basement door looking in, etc. All because he said I loved him and we belonged together. But I just didn't know it yet. I lasted almost a year after we broke up until I had to almost get the cops involved. We have the same ex, and I did get the cops involved after he took my phone and locked me in my bathroom. He wouldn't let me out until I told him I loved him back, which took 3 hours. I immediately ran out of the house to the police. He is a high school teacher. He was a budding animator who had a crush on me. As a romantic gesture to win me over, he created an anthropomorphic sexy squirrel character based on me and drew several very detailed and graphic pin-up type pictures of it and uploaded them to his online portfolio. He was a pretty skilled artist and the face of the character was noticeably me. He said it was how he saw me in his fantasies. Broke into my house, left an engagement ring on my bed and a note saying how he'd masturbated in my sheets because they smelled like me. This was all after I broke up with him. The morning after our first date, sent me a picture of a guy going down on a woman, and said his first thought this morning was doing that to me. Later the same day he texted me saying he was falling in love with me, and that was the end of the shortest relationship I've ever had. Gave me stolen underwear and cheap jewelry a couple of hours after we'd met. This guy also asked me when he could put a baby in me and confessed his love for me. He told me he was 23 when we met, and by the time I got away he was 33. Keep in mind that I was 17 at the time. He told me to climb in the window of his house when I arrived. He was right there and I was already weirded out, plus I have some issues, so I agreed with much trepidation. His best friend, who was also one of his housemates at the time, now lives right down the road from me and is visited by creep number 1 regularly. After I got away I texted him and told him never to talk to me again. He then demanded all his gifts back or he would call the cops and tell them you sold my stuff. I said okay, if he gave me a place to drop them off I would have my parents do it. He refused this and insisted that I meet him. It didn't happen. He continued to message me and leave me voice messages until I got a new phone 6 months later. One of the weirdest nights of my life. Met me on the train. Says he's related to a rugby player. The resemblance is there so I believe him. And tries to ask me out thinking I like rugby players' cousins. Half an hour later, when I'm waiting for my friend to get money out, he tries to surprise me with a quick kiss, covered my mouth and also tried to slip in the tongue. Then goes for the boot grab, holding me close to him with a really strong arm. My friend grabbed him and kneed him in the stomach when I finally got his gross mouth off me, yelling for help. Followed me to the bathroom at a party because he just wanted to help me. When I confronted him outside in front of the party host he said I think I'm in love with you. I had just met him that night. Ugh. When I was 17 I was at a house party and had been polity chatting with my friend's 30-year-old co-workers. I needed to pee so he showed me where the bathroom was. On the way there he tripped and fell on me pinning me to the wall with his hands on my breast and arm. He held me there and went into for a kiss. That was the first guy I've ever slapped. I let my ex take a photo of me going down on him. He posted it on a social media website because he wanted everyone to see how amazing I was. Holy heck. I gave a guy a ride home once and went inside so I could use his bathroom before I headed home myself. When I came out of the bathroom he was on the couch with his pants to his knees smoking one of those skinny cigars. He was just like sup. I left quickly. When I started seeing my now husband, I had a friend who was very upset he hadn't asked me out first. He kept asking me to go out with him instead, that he'd make a much better partner. I should have shut it down harder but I was 18 and the more insistent he got the more scared I was. I was worried I was blowing it out of proportion. He kept coming into my work to talk when he knew I couldn't leave or be rude to him as a customer. It escalated until he texted me in the middle of the night to tell me he'd slit his wrists because I wouldn't go out with him and was smearing it all over the walls. Why was I hurting him so much? Couldn't I see he was the one for me? To him it was a grand declaration of love. I was terrified. I stopped replying at all after that. I thought he would come after me. I had to get my managers and security involved to stop him coming in to see me and a few months later he moved away and got another girl pregnant. I should have gone to the police but it honestly didn't occur to me at the time. I thought they'd just dismiss it as no big deal. I hope this never happens again, but if you ever get told that someone slit their wrists you can actually call the police and they will put the person on a 72-hour psychiatric hold US for evaluation. Might be helpful in cases like this. Snuck into my apartment building after going on one date. Taped a flower and a love poem to my door. Now this might have been cute because the start of the poem was all joking around and goofy, but then the second half of the poem was all weird and you and I are gonna be together forever and have 10 babies kinda crap. You don't pull that crap after one date. WTF. Yeah, if you've only been on one date you're only allowed to have one baby in the poem. Comma, you are so nice. We'll have one baby until my check goes through and I can take you to a steakhouse Friday and then we'll have 2 babies. Also, do you want to go out on Friday? Sort of deal. He proposed to me on the first date, had a ring and everything. The restaurant was chock full of people to be all AWW young love. Pictures were taken. Obviously I said no. I mean, I didn't even know this guy's middle name. And he was so nervous just talking to me I was halfway assuming he was on some kind of weird twitchy drug. A few years later he sent me a text. He mentioned a girlfriend, which lulled me into a sense of security. Plus I'm a pretty polite idiot, so I responded, Pointedly mentioned my boyfriend just in case. Anyway, he said we should grab coffee while he was in town visiting family and I agreed. Ray, polite idiot. He proposed again. It was a different ring. Part of me wonders if he just picks a girl once a week and gives it a shot. I still don't know his middle name. My teacher asked me out on the last day of class. We were both in our mid-20s. We went out and after a few drinks he admitted to jerking off to my Facebook pictures. I ended up spending the night anyway and the next day he texted me how nice it was to find my hair in the shower. That story was a roller coaster of emotions. He left a bag with a live snake in it tied to my car antenna while it was parked in my high school's parking lot. I got a restraining order. You are so freaking hot. I jerked off to you twice last night. He thought that was the equivalent of whispering sweet nothings in my ear. He was the security guard for the mall I worked in. He used to just stand in front of my store. Didn't really stare but would look in from time to time. One night a customer started trying to open our gates after we had just closed. I already finished closing my tills so I couldn't process another sale until the next morning. This guy loses it and starts getting violent with the door trying to get inside. Creepy security guard to the rescue. He dragged the customer out of the mall. Turns out he got arrested later that evening. Security guard swoops in and says that was scary. Are you okay? Would you like to go for a walk and grab a coffee with me? Take your mind off things. Smooth as frick. And he was decently attractive. Didn't give off creepy mofo vibes. I agreed. We spent all evening walking downtown. We went to a record store where he picked up a few things, and I pointed out a CD that had a pretty cover. I only knew one song from it. I think it was an MXPX CD. Then we went past a Le Chateau, and I pointed out a pretty prom dress in the window. I thought it was nice. Didn't think anything of it, just commenting. He walks me home, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and that was that. He was a gentleman and was very sweet. Didn't expect anything from me. I had a wonderful time and was excited for date 2. The next day he wasn't working, but as I was leaving my store a random guy came up and said this is from your biggest fan and handed me the MXPX CD from the night before. Odd, but a cute gesture. It wasn't expensive. Maybe he was just trying to make me smile. Anyway, I thanked the stranger and went home. The day after that I still didn't see him and took my lunch break. When I returned, my manager asked me if I was still in high school because there was a prom dress that had been delivered to me while I was out. My heart sunk. I was creeped out. The dress was like $300 minimum. I felt sick. I had to find him and tell him to reel it back. He was freaking me out. On my way home that night, I see him standing under the streetlight in the distance in front of my flat. He's holding roses and wearing a suit. Oh god number I thought, but at least now I can talk to him. Before I can even open my mouth, he hands me roses, gets down on one knee, and asks me to marry him. I obviously say no, and start to explain myself, when he interrupts me. What do you mean no? Didn't you accept my gifts? What are you, a gold digging WI? And that's when I ran into my building and never looked back. I quit my job the next day and moved 2 months later. Never saw him again. TLDR. Security guard seems amazing on first date, then drops $300 minimum on gifts and then proposes, and upon refusal gets aggressive. Quit my job. I've been reading through a lot of these, but this one is the winner in my mind. He went from decent dude to the ultimate scary creep in record time. Just, holy crap. I had this long distance BF when I was a kid. He moved to another state, which was great for my parents because he was older and they hated him. So he sends me a care package one day. Huge box. Open it up. In front of my dad, of course. There's a shared journal where we write back and forth. Some things from his childhood, like Dollar Tree rubber toy animals and stuff. And a Hot Topic bag. Oh cool, a t-shirt. Nope. It was a pair of used boxers. On this occasion, I will admit that possibly my mother was right and he was a bit of an idiot. Drawn a pie chart of all the girls he likes and tried to convince me to go on a date with him since I was 32% of the pie. This thread just gets better and better. I was late to physics class one day. Big engineering school, so lectures were huge, so took the first available seat in the back row next to a kid I didn't know. Instead of just sitting quietly and listening to the lecture, he introduces himself and starts talking to me. I tell him I want to hear the lecture, so he quiets down, but stares at me the rest of the class. Next class I sit down more towards the front. He comes in and sits next to me. Same thing happens for the next 5 classes despite me showing no interest in talking to him, interacting with him, and having even turned him down twice to go on a date. The next class, being annoyed with the situation, I choose an aisle seat, with the seat next to it already taken. Kid walks in and sits on the floor next to me in the aisle. It was absurd. I had a guy who was a tad bit obsessed with me, once carved my name into his arm with a razor blade. He thought it was romantic as crap, but when I told him that once again I would not go out with him, he had a meltdown and threatened to kill himself. I had to eventually quit my job to get away from him. Just a tad. I've got a few. One summer in high school I started dating an older guy. I was 15. He was 20. He went to college in California. One night after he had gone back to school, he called me and told me he had just had a threesome with a girl and another guy, and even though we weren't sleeping together, he felt it was important for me to know so that we could be closer when he came back for break. 2. My first big girl apartment after I graduated college and the first time I had ever lived alone. I met a guy about the same time I was moving in. After 2 dates he set up his coffee maker in my kitchen and told me it was because he just knew he'd be moving in soon and wanted to be able to enjoy fresh coffee with me every morning. I don't like coffee and we hadn't even slept together. 3. My ex-boyfriend put on a video and told me it was to liven things up and get us in the mood. I'm not against pee, but I am when it's a home movie he made with his ex-girlfriend. He really thought it would turn me on to see him getting it on with his ex. At university I fell asleep in the common room during a swarm session, and the guy who liked me just stroked my hair while I slept. I fell asleep at grad night and woke up to my best friend yelling at someone to stop touching me. Dude was just stroking my back while I slept and I have no frickin' idea who he was. I'd been flirting with this guy on Facebook for a few weeks after meeting a party. At some unrelated point during this time I created an event where a few of my friends were invited to dinner. Some things came up and we decided via text to change the location a few hours prior. However, since he'd been stalking the old details, halfway through entrees at this new place one of my friends gets a call from him saying he's at the restaurant and looking for us. I wasn't into him very much after that. I'm blaming Facebook on this one. Sure, it attract creepers, but I'll be damned if it doesn't create more creepers out of normal people. A guy showed up on Halloween dressed in a costume to match mine. I was Cruella de Vil. He showed up as a 6 feet 6 inches Dalmatian puppy, complete with a leash. He had stalked me through my friends to find out what my costume was going to be. I had met the guy like once before. I was so mad that I didn't even bother to get to know the guy. He may have had a chance if he wasn't so dang creepy. I was asleep in my bed, without PJs, and he decided to take his clothes off and join me. He thought cuddling me and groping me as I slept was romantic. I didn't know who he was. My flatmate had brought 2 guys home and she had suggested he spend the night with me. When I woke up and raged out at him, he told me that he thought I'd be into it. I don't live with or speak to that flatmate anymore. An ex-roommate of mine was dating a guy that would routinely try to rape her roommates, myself being one of them. He once punched my roommate in the face and told her that she'd like it if she just went along. Said he wanted to buy me a necklace with his name on it so other guys would know I was his and not talk to me. Apparently, it's romantic to treat women like property. The guy threw off all kinds of domestic violence warning signs and I noped out of there fast. Yeah, that's a pretty huge red flag. Well played. This isn't creepy, but it was very uncomfortable. So I was seeing this guy years ago and one night we were in bed. We'd never actually fricked, although I'd been trying to get in his pants for weeks, but he'd never go all the way with me. He'd just sleep over in my bed. Anyway, we were spooning one night and he starts singing to me with the most awkward sincerity. "You're so beautiful. And I love you. Yeah. And I love you. So beautiful. That's about all I can remember. I buried my head into a pillow and froze, trying not to laugh and pretending I was asleep. It was a really weird moment. I never tried to frick him after that, but it was kind of endearing in a weird way. That's hilarious. Years ago I had a first date with a guy who was really into his music. He decided to sing and play guitar for me, and because I'm naturally quite shy, I just found it really overwhelming and embarrassing. X walked 10 miles to the house where I grew up. It was the middle of the night, winter. My ex had a light jacket and stood barefoot in the snow outside my bedroom and tapped on my window to get me back. Movie, romantic, real life horror movie, scared the crap out of me. He told me that he was planning to have me pregnant in 2 weeks and by the end of the year we would be married. I'd have to leave my job and be a housewife. His cousin would teach me how to cook. It was our first and last date. I'm a cocktail waitress and for a few months we had this really weird, creepy barback. He was just really socially awkward, and I wouldn't have been friendly to him, but he took any display of kindness as an opening to hit on me. I asked one of the other waitresses to make sure he knew I was married with a child, and when she told him he said he knew. On his birthday, he was all kinds of giddy, brought in a disposable camera, this was like 2014, mind you, and just wanted to take pictures with people all night. I took a super awkward photo with him to be polite. Totally forgot about it. Anyway, cut to like 2 weeks later and he gifts me with a DVD. Just a random movie he liked. I think it was filmed in the city or something. I don't know. He told me to open the case and boom, there was the awkward pic of the two of us sitting inside. It was so freaking weird. He kept trying to friend me on Facebook too. His profile pic and cover photo were both creeptastic pics of him and a wife beater in the courtyard of the club where we work making muscle man poses. He wasn't really that muscly. Oh, and he also gave a picture to one of the bartenders. Hers was hidden in a box of chocolates and he used to coo a baby version of her name as his own personal nickname for her. I avoided him like the plague and tipped him the minimum no matter how much I made. He eventually got fired for being such a creepy sucker. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.